Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining in for our first episode of Incisive Insights, an actual brainchild, the name is, of our first guest. A little play on words with Incisive Insights, if you will, right? My name is Katie Swindle. I do the channel partnerships here at Overjet, but really what we wanted to bring home here is the clinician stories that work here. What you probably don't know about Overjet is we actually have 15 full-time dentists on staff. Some of them are cutting teeth, maybe in their free time, but really their career is now dedicated to helping pave the way with AI in dentistry. So I'm super excited to have Dr. Gordon Barfield here. Hey, Dr. Gordon.
Hey, Katie, what's up?
I'm super excited to have you. Thank you for flying down to Tampa.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
If you will, can you share a little bit about your background in dentistry, kind of how it's very interesting, so I don't want to insult you and try to do it myself.
No, okay. Of course. It is interesting. I agree there. I started out with a mentor in dentistry, and it was a person that was in my family, my extended family, if you will, and was a dentist. And I really was a student of the sciences, but really had no interest in dentistry, no interest in medicine at all, until I spent some time with this dentist. And I realized that he had a good life. He was able to pick and choose his hours.
Golf on Wednesdays?
Golf on Wednesdays, golf on Saturdays, church on Sundays.
Yeah,
and
always.
It really was a nice lifestyle that I saw. And so I actually could pattern myself after him. I could see myself in his shoes. And that's really what started me down that path to dentistry. So I studied biology and chemistry when I was in school and loved it. And like most science majors, had to make a decision on where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do with that type of information. So that led me into the dental field, and spent 3 years in the Air Force practicing dentistry, where I did my first residency in comp general dentistry, hospital dentistry, that type of thing. And then went into private practice, and I practiced in Salem, Virginia, Southwest Virginia, in the mountains, and you're familiar with the mountains.
Oh, yeah. We're both, I don't know if you can hear it in the accents, but we are probably the most redneck people at Overjet. So it's amazing that we're kicking this off this way. But yeah, it's funny because I think like my first day and getting intro, and I hear Dr. Gordon, and I'm like, my people. You bet. Country accents.
Rednecks represent, right?
But yeah, hey, we got to get scrappy a little bit.
That's
so I love
right.
you have that background.
Yeah. Practicing in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, until about midway in my career, when I heard a little voice talking to me, and that voice said, "Is this all there is to dentistry and dental practice for you?" And I answered no, because I was curious. I've always been a curious individual in life, as we'll get into in a moment. But I went back to retrain in orthodontics, believe it or not. And I was 46 at the time when I did that. So a very atypical student. I've remained atypical as a dentist. I'm kind of tangential to the dental profession, I think, in many, many ways. And practiced ortho in Atlanta, Georgia until 2022, when my wife, who is a dentist as well, allowed me the graciousness of retiring clinically. So I let her work, and I could sit on the couch and read the newspaper and watch football.
Nice. Yeah. Every man's dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the days that you weren't golfing when you were practicing clinically, why we really get into dentistry is, to have those days. What did a typical day look like for you? I know you had you've went a lot of different rungs, even in just your clinical setting, and then even practicing with your wife. So if you could tell us a little bit about your day-to-day, what that looked like.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that it was quite similar from general dentistry to orthodontics, because both of my settings required seeing a lot of patients. I was in very large active practices, anywhere from 35 to 110 patients per day. And so there was a lot of activity. I moved around a lot. I was very busy. We had large staff members, large numbers of patients that we would see in the community. Just a very, very, very active type practice. And I enjoyed it because staying busy is one of my core values. I've always been a person who doesn't sit still very much, and that fit with me really well. However, there's some mileage that comes along with that as well. So if you're wondering where my hair went, it was due to being so busy at the chair.
Well, you got color still. It's kind of blonde. Like we've got the country, we've got the blonde going. So.
Yeah, you can buy the color.
Well, don't tell all the secrets yet, okay? Well, what I love about this is that you're telling the story of so many clinicians that are out there, probably struggling in those career paths and wanting to know what's next, wanting to learn more. And yeah, so where was that point, that pivotal point for you where it was like, okay, technology?
Yeah, that's a great one. I have always, because I'm a curious person, been interested in science and technology, and that translated to my dental practices. I was always an early adopter. So when you think about things like digital health record, digital X-rays as an example, intraoral scanning, we were some of the first practices to have those technologies when they came around, and certainly 3D CBCT in my orthodontic career, and now up to AI. So it was a natural progression for me. I just have always been interested in technology, and it fits perfectly in with what I'm doing here now at Overjet.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is a day in the life now that we've talked through your clinical day in the life? Like, what does that look like? And it's funny that I'm asking you this because I think I know what it looks like. And there's days where it's really fast and there's all these things that are kind of thrown at you. So like working one at a startup, I think is one thing, but working and it's such a tech forward and something that we're also passionate about, like bringing AI to dentistry. But if you could highlight a little bit of that for maybe our clinical audience that might be thinking, hey, I want to try something out that's maybe a little bit more tech focused. Tell them about your day now at Overjet.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because it is nothing like what you would spend in a dental clinic at all. The two worlds are almost diametrically opposed. I do a fair amount of travel for the company, so I'm a Delta Diamond, as they say, trying to get that first class upgrade every time I can when possible. And that keeps me on the road, probably 12 to 14 days a month, typically. So busy there. We also are involved with the product, right? So the clinicians here at Overjet work with the product team as well. And I think this is really important for the audience to know. And it's one of the most important pieces of work I think that our clinicians do is guiding the development of this amazing technology. We want it to be built for the right reasons and the right way. We're committed to that at Overjet, and having clinical input into all of the decisions around how the product is built and deployed, we feel like gives us an edge there, and we feel like it commits us to a right path and strategy for this new technology that's going to affect all of us in the profession.
Yeah, 100%. What part of this work really gives you the most energy? Is it the clinical conversations, product input, meetings with me, like flying down to Tampa, policy implications? I know you've got some things there that we'll share later, but what gives you energy about being on this side of dentistry?
Well, yeah, it's always cool flying to Tampa to see you. You're wonderful, right? Of course. But I think all the above. That's the best way to answer that, Katie. It really is. In my view, I have one of the best jobs out there because I'm still involved with the clinicians and my colleagues at that level. I see myself as something of a translator. I believe that that's a really important piece of my role, sitting, if you will, between this amazingly powerful technology, and we've never seen anything like this before really in society that's this powerful. And then our professional colleagues who are just coming around to learning about its power and what it can do to improve oral health for society. So this is an amazing thing. This is why I get up every morning, believe it or not. It can sound a little corny and maybe a little too altruistic, but that's what I have deep inside of my DNA. And so I get up every morning with that energy, and it never lets me down. I enjoy working with the product specialists and machine learning scientists and computer engineers here at Overjet, and as well as being out on the road and talking to boots on the ground clinicians.
Yeah.
You bet.
I think you put it best with translator, because in every facet of what the clinical team is doing at Overjet is translation to some degree. So I love coming to Overjet as a salesperson. I didn't realize the impact and I really didn't realize how many clinical team members we actually had until it was like on a deck. And I was like, wait a second. And there's so many people. You, of course, I know. And then Dr. Balaban, we have Dr. Parag, which will highlight all their stories. Dr. Kerry Dolan. We're just amazing people that are on the forefront and, in a lot of the things and out and about. But there's, many more that are behind the scenes doing that translation. And, coming from the sales background of like, we go to, Chicago Midwinter or the Hinman, and of course we're going to be selling it. And, we try to set the right expectation, but it just comes off so differently when it's that clinician to clinician. So I love that translator piece. And then again, you do that on the internal side because there's things that we have, internally that we ask. So like sales team or customer service. And then of course the product team, because what I think is really grounded Overjet, and you're a part of that mission, is the ability to have that grounding and have that clinical background, and not just say like, oh, we're going to change the world by doing X, but not understanding the history and the foundation.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think that one of the things that I really love evangelizing about when I'm out on the road is that this is a clinical company. This is the reason I chose to be here. This is not a company that's just built by a bunch of tech bros and has some cool software, right? We have a mission that's dedicated to clinical care, dedicated to patients and clinicians all around the world ultimately. And being a part of that is amazingly exciting for a latter end of your career type of role and position. It's absolutely thrilling.
Yeah. Well, I have self-deprecating humor, of course. So
of course you do.
Have to. The accent kind of leads me into that, because it's like, well, I gotta, buffer this a little bit, gotta sandbag some. But it's so funny to see people's faces whenever I'm like, guess what? I'm not gonna train you on this product. It's actually going to be a hygienist or a dentist, and like their faces light up because they're like, okay, somebody who's been in my shoes, not somebody who really wants to put lipstick on a pig and is gonna like sell it, to be something that it's not. You
Exactly.
guys understand the clinical application. And so I love that. And so just pivoting now, because I learned something about you that I didn't know, which is, well, I knew this kind of, but I knew you're super smart. But
well, thank you.
You're a genius, and you have the accent. Dang it. I'll have to work on that. But your studies in policy and what you're doing now, tell me, just start from the beginning with your master's and what you're doing there and what you're trying to drive.
Yeah, it's interesting. Because I have done some study in data science before coming to Overjet, in fact, I've always been very, very interested in the foundations of data. And as you know, data really serves as the pillar of artificial intelligence. Without the data, you don't really have AI. And I began to wonder about where all this is ultimately going, and specifically, where is it going in dentistry, right? Because dentistry has been my career. So I am currently at Purdue University right now, finishing up a master's in artificial intelligence. I'm going to take a track that is focused on policy and governance, policy management and governance. And I'm especially interested in being able to have a voice at the table when the regulations around AI, which will ultimately be coming and changing, are ultimately laid out, right, for dentistry. That's currently taking place now, but it isn't fully vetted out. And so I feel that organized dentistry, dentists, dental professionals should have a voice at that table. Maybe not the only voice, but we certainly should have a voice at that table. So I'm interested in being a part of that and seeing where we can drive this for the most good, because as you know, we talk about this a lot. The idea is not just to build something, but to build it for good, right? Build it for something that benefits mankind, and that's what we're doing here. And so having the professionals who are involved with utilizing this type of technology in that conversation, I feel is crucial.
Oh, it's huge. And I think so much of the time we think, I say they think healthcare includes dentistry, but the reality of it is it does in the sense, but whenever you think about the people at the table, it's usually not.
Oftentimes, that's right.
Yeah, and it's usually kind of like the second thought. So I feel like that's extremely important, because we have to get a grapple of like what is the impact of this. And what's interesting to me is that I heard this from Dr. Terry Dolan the other day. We were talking about universities, and we were talking, okay, what is the impact and what are we doing? And of course, coming from the sales background, I'm thinking numbers. And she said, something that really resonated with me of, when we put this in the hands of schools, we're teaching people responsibly. It's not just about like, oh, I'm attached now to this brand. Yep. It's responsible use of AI. So I feel like you embody that same sentiment. And I was like blown away by that mission of hers.
Well, I appreciate that, Katie. And, but it's true. It really is true. I think that one of the things that rings home at this stage of life is that dentistry has been very, very good to me and my family personally. I've reaped so many benefits throughout life being involved in dentistry. There comes a time for most of us when we kind of wake up, if you will, later in life and think, this would be a good time to give back. And I feel like this is a natural place that I'm going to be able to give back to the profession that's given so much to me.
Yeah. And what are some of the things that you're getting out of that program now where you think there's going to be an immediate impact?
Oh my goodness! It runs all the way from project management to advanced data concepts, right? I mean, it's incredibly linked and relevant to the work that I do every day at Overjet. Amazingly so. Learning the background of this technology, learning how it's built, learning the history of the technology allows me in my role to go out and to be that translator. You know, if you don't really know the definition of something, it's very hard to teach it, right? If you don't know about something, you can't teach it. So in my role as a translator, it's essential for me to have a really firm grasp on what AI is and what it's not. And so, you know, this program at Purdue is really helping me with that. I feel like when I come out of there, I'm going to be positioned in a really wonderful place to be able to make that mark within this profession that I've been in for now 35, going on 36 years.
Yeah. And how do you balance all of this? Because I know you're on the road. I'm asking you to come to Tampa and let's go do Topgolf and do the things. But how are you balancing just from a time perspective? How do you do both?
Listen, it is not easy. I can tell you that. It is increasingly difficult. That's one of the benefits of not having children at home, right? You don't have to raise kids, then you have time to do other things. But to answer that really honestly, it's all about a lot of work on the weekends and at nights, to be honest with you. One of the benefits of being a frequent flyer is that you do have some time to be able to actually work. And now that we have decent Wi-Fi on most of our airplanes, you can get some schoolwork done on those.
Yeah, we need to cut to a Delta commercial because their Wi-Fi really is banging. I'll go on a Southwest flight and expect to buy, pay freaking $15 for a 1 hour flight. And I can't get anything. I barely get one Slack. And of course, in the world we live in today, that's horrible. And Delta, it's free, So, yeah, I'm sure you're getting a lot of work done on them.
Oh, yeah. You get
plenty of time.
Good reading and you get a lot of research done, things like that. It's kind of quiet time. Put in your AirPods and just kind of go to work,
Yeah.
And that's not to say that we don't do a lot of work for Overjet as well on the plane.
Yeah.
But, if you're on a 2 to 4 to even a 5 hour flight, sometimes that's a lot of time to get things done. So,
yeah. A lot of quiet time, too, where you're not having to...
Yeah, absolutely.
Deal with the outside distractions.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And I would add here that this is sort of ancillary to that question, but the advent of Gen AI and LLMs has really, really helped us to be able to do research at scale, where before it required so much time just with the basic parts of research. Mm-hmm. Now we can kind of boost that up, utilize tooling to help us to get our work done quicker. And you got to validate it, of course, but it really has helped us in terms of getting a quantity of work done in a much shorter period of time.
Yeah, 1,000%. I love that validation piece because that's with everything that I think I've had output from any Claude, ChatGPT, and it helps me so much, with the foundation.
Yep.
But of course, putting that final touch and making sure it all looks good, huge time saver. And that's a great point about what you're doing with your research and your master's program. Is there anything you're studying today that is immediately applicable to Overjet?
All of it.
All of it.
Every bit of it is. Yeah. Every bit of it is.
So are you going to go create laws to help us, or?
Well, listen, I'm not a lawyer. I play one on TV, right? But no, I think that we need to have, all of the stakeholders have to have a seat at this table in the discussion around what regulations are going to be needed, because the power that resides in the technology, as you know, is overwhelmingly amazing. It is incredible, the power that is sitting here. And that, if used in the wrong way, is a real problem for society, right? So I think that we're going to need some constructs around how it should be constructed, how it should be deployed, how it should be utilized. But if we deploy it properly and we utilize it for good, which is, of course, what we're doing here at Overjet, then I think that the outputs and the increases in really, really valuable things for society, and in our case, health outputs, oral health outputs, are going to be things that we can all look at and be quite proud of. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think the governance and the policy piece is super important.
Yeah. And if we could zoom out just a little bit, with this intersection of AI, public health, and what you're doing. So if I'm a clinician that's listening to this today, what should I be paying attention to? Regardless if I'm using AI or not in my practice, what should I perk up around?
If I'm a clinician, I think that anyone would be remiss to ignore the concept of technology and its effect on clinical practice and healthcare, because the effect is huge today and it's just getting started. It's going to be much, much bigger into the future. It's growing at a logarithmic rate. So I don't think we have the option of maybe burying our head in the sand and saying, we've always done it this way, I'm going to reject technology. Technology in general is going to do wonderful things for health outcomes, both in medicine as well as in dentistry. So I think for sure, not ignoring technology is critically important. If we think about it from the AI perspective, that's where the growth is the steepest. The growth curve is the steepest here. And I know it's occurred to me. I've been here at Overjet for 2 years, and the company is an entirely different company than when I came on in 2023. So AI is going to be something that we cannot avoid in our lives and society. We should embrace it. We should look toward where can this tooling help me do what I do, and in our case, care for patients, right? And then the ability to utilize it in the proper fashion and to be able to have it augment what we're already really, really great at doing, which is caring for patients. Yeah. This is just like picking up a better paintbrush, right? Mm-hmm. Or a better dental handpiece, or a better dental x-ray, if you will.
Yeah, it allows you to do so much more. And I think Absolutely. About the time, like this is really stupid example, but like time it takes me to construct an entire email and like all the thought that goes into it, and I want to make it perfect. And, you know, having that ability to leverage AI to at least structure it. And, you know, like it's not that it could write that email for me and everybody would or wouldn't know it's AI. People would probably know if I just sent it as is, right. But it's me plus that makes the output that much better, which is what I love about your sediment. You know, it's you get to go back to doing what you're good at, you know, which is patients.
Absolutely, and it augments the human, right? So we think about in the collaborative perspective, the human and the computer more powerful together.
In your view, clinicians that are listening today, what can they do to get involved to, you know, help influence dental technology?
I think the first thing there is one of the most obvious things. I think they have to understand it, and I don't believe anyone really has the option, if you will, right now to just say it's coming, it's cool, but I just want to keep going in the same direction, because the rate of change and the rate of growth here is so steep that a person could literally look up in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and be in an entirely different practice setting than they are today. So I would behoove any of my professional colleagues to make sure that you have a base level knowledge about this technology, understand what it can and it can't do, and how it is going to impact your practice moving forward.
Yeah, and I think the sentiment there is, you know, do your own research, regardless if you're adopting or not. Like, do real informed research. Don't just listen to what, you know, your colleague is doing or what you hear on the show floor, or you got a magazine about. Like, do informed research, determine how you feel about it, because it is coming. And what I love about this time period that we're in is that you can have a voice and be impactful no matter what position you're in. I think it's so funny to see like the rise of the dentists on TikTok that are like dancing and doing these things, and you keep scrolling and there's like these nuggets of genius and the things that they're doing and they're sharing, and there's so much information out there. And I think people struggle with that. And I went to school for accounting. I thought accounting was the only thing I was ever going to do, and, you know, kind of woke up like you one day and needed a pivot. And there's so many people that are in that spot, but you have the ability to have a voice and to exercise on what you've been very tactical about it. You went back to school, you got certifications, you pursued Overjet and like got really involved and are now even pursuing that further. But I know for the normal dummies like me, you know, it's like we struggle with what is that next step. How do I have that voice? And I love that we live in this world where there is so much access to this information, and there's also access to help influence that. So.
Absolutely there is. And I think that just wraps back into the technology thing again. It's super easy to do nowadays for a person who wants to do it, literally wants to get up and do whatever it is, whatever your goal is, whatever it makes you, you know, get up in the morning. It's easy to go do that nowadays. Just get up and do it. The other thing I would say, I think that's important here, that ties into the concept of how a person becomes a professional, is one of our core values as professionals, and it's in our DNA, is this business about being a lifelong learner. I think that's super, super important. For any person who doesn't carry that sort of thought process throughout their life, I think they're missing something. I think that they're missing something that's really valuable and really can provide a lot of incredible self-worth to any human being inside. That self-learning concept, that lifelong learner concept, where you can pick up a book, you can pick up a magazine, you can get on the internet, you can learn Claude, ChatGPT. You can learn to code Python, I did, and R, and all of those fun, cool things if you just open up your mind to be able to do it. So I think that, you think about the younger graduates as an example, our younger folks who are training up in our dental schools with AI now. Those folks are going to be so well equipped when they come out, but they're also coming up into a society where knowledge is available at the flick of a mouse button. Knowledge is available. It's readily available. And that should be empowering for anybody that wants to utilize that knowledge.
Yeah. I love this mind shift, and like your talk about the adult learning and having that passion and like just continuing on. I think that it falls back to doing what you love and finding those paths. Is there anything that influenced you? Like, was there an experience that kind of shifted you where you're like, okay, I'm now a life, like, how do you get into that? I want to be a life learner now. Like, I need to go read.
Well, I remember telling our CEO, Warda, at one point we were at a meeting, and she kind of looked at me and she said, "A retired orthodontist, what in the world are you doing here?" And I thought, it was a curious question. It's not the first time I've heard the question. It was just the first time that Warda posed it to me. And I turned to her and I looked at her with all the seriousness that I could gather. And I said, "I've just always been curious, Warda. I'm a curious person." And so I think that's one of my superpowers, if you will. But it doesn't mean that can't be developed. I think that, for folks who would be interested in any subject matter, today is the best time to pick up something and start to learn about it, right?
Yeah.
If you want to grow a tree, the best time was 20 years, but the second best time is today to plant it, right?
Oh, so how does this change the entire methodology of how we're looking at dental care?
Oh boy, how does it change? I mean, it's like night and day.
Sorry, that's very open-ended.
No, it's a great question, I think. We are in an era now where, just like I mentioned about if you want to learn something, it's at your fingertips. Now dentistry is a legacy space, as we all know. It's always been about as much art as science, right? Maybe even more art in some cases. But you think about the concepts of data, right? Data has been around forever. We've never had computers like we have today, though, to be able to crunch this data. So we're now able to understand things about our dental practices, our dental patients, their oral health, our outcomes, through the lens of data for the first time ever. And we are actually finding some things that we didn't know before. As an example, despite what our patients tell us, we are grossly underdiagnosing dental disease around the world, grossly underdiagnosing it. And that should be concerning for anyone who is or has as a mission to improve folks' dental health and oral health, right? And we learned that through data. We didn't learn it just because somebody said it or had a gut feeling. The data shows us that. And so I think that the foundations of data within dentistry and the unique inferences and insights that we're able to get from it are really changing how we view the overall dental health of society at large. And I think that we're not as healthy from a dental perspective as maybe we thought we were.
100%. And you had told me something the other day that was really impactful of that there's 200,000 dentists in the U.S.
Roughly, yep.
And there's about 10%. We're touching 10% of the world, which to me is terrifying. I want to know everything about what's going on. I'm trying to catch it. I'm such this iPad baby generation. How do you think that technology is going to help address that? Like, is it a labor shortage? Because I, to a degree, like when I came to Overjet, I had this realization that I was a part of the problem. As a consumer, as somebody who, goes to the dentist, I immediately think, how is this going to impact my wallet? Mm-hmm. Does this hurt me? Are my teeth still white? And if it didn't check any of those boxes, then I'm probably not going to deal with it today. It wasn't really till I had more impactful, reasoning and evidence that I started to really value that. So is it labor? Is it, the consumer mindset? Is it a shift? Like, what is impacting this 90% gap of where we're catching and diagnosing oral disease?
I think there are a number of things there. I think certainly human behavior is part of it. I think there is a bit of a labor shortage as well. We don't have enough oral health clinicians, certainly in the United States, to be able to take care of the dental need that we know is there based upon the data. And then I think the other thing is leveraging technology, and in this case we think about AI, to actually move patients' understanding of what their disease is, right? So to take them from a position of, as you said, if it's not pretty or hurting, I don't really care too much about it, right? It's not important, but it is important. We know it is. And can we utilize technology to be able to move the patient's needle on understanding and then ultimately driving urgency for them to be able to accept and request care that we as clinicians know that they should get for a number of different reasons, right? Not the least of which is that dentistry and oral health, of course, is affecting our entire body. And that's not refutable in 2025. So there are very important reasons why we can leverage things like AI to be able to have outputs that aren't just getting treatment, but that are including things like changing behaviors.
And so if we're just kind of like looking back a little bit, I feel like we could dive into all of the deals with the industry today and what we want to change about it. But, I want to talk a little bit more about you because I think your story is so interesting.
You're scaring me.
Sorry. So if anything, what do you miss about clinical practice now that you're on the tech side?
I'll tell you, I do miss interactions with patients and their families, particularly long-term ones. Those are very important things. And since I've been out of practice now for going on 3 years, I realize that I miss my interactions with my staff a lot as well. And it's not that we don't build wonderful friendships here in industry, here at Overjet. You and I have come to become very, very good friends in the last 2 years. We joined at about the same time. Yeah. But it's a unique relationship that you carry with your patients and then with your staff as well. So I miss those things. I do not miss seeing 100 patients per day. I don't miss an aching back or an aching neck. Right, those are the things that
Delta takes care of you for that.
Yeah, right, Delta. But dentistry is tough. It's a very, very difficult profession for those who don't know about it, and I won't miss those types of things. But I also, on the other side of that fence, find so much energy in the knowledge that what we're building here with artificial intelligence and what I have a very tiny, tiny hand in helping to build doesn't affect tens of thousands of patients who I treated in my career very successfully with wonderful outcomes, but it now affects and potentially affects millions of people. That thought, that notion is incredibly powerful. And it certainly does drive me every day to get up and go to work and to put in the effort.
Yeah, I love that. And if you're looking at, a clinician that wants to make that swap, do you have any advice for them if they want to go clinical into tech or tech policy? What's your advice to them?
Well, I would say it goes back to the curiosity piece. You have to be interested in something to want to really go toward it, to drive toward it, if you will. And so I would say find what makes you tick, find what you're really, really interested in, and then get up off the couch and pursue the thing. Just go do it. It literally is that simple, particularly in this era where we have information at our fingertips, right? So absolutely, just go do it.
I'm scared to ask this one, but
I'm scared to answer.
If somebody were to shadow you for a day, like a dentist or whoever, what would be the one thing that you do during your day at Overjet that would surprise them most?
There are a couple things, but I think what would probably shock them is the number of hours that we put in and our clinical team puts in pursuit of building this technology. Of course, you mentioned earlier that we work for a startup. And startups are difficult by nature. It's a really, really tough job. But the difference between doing dentistry for 3 days a week, which I probably averaged maybe 3.5 days a week in my entire career, versus working full-time, sometimes 7 days a week, not all the time, but sometimes we're 7 days a week at Overjet because the mission just it needs it. You have to get done what needs to get done. Probably would surprise most people. I think that most people would also be surprised to know that there's the need for clinical expertise in the tech sector, that there exists. I remember having an interview well before I joined. I was doing my rounds of Zoom meetings with dentists, and you remember this story that I could identify were in the tech sector because I was so curious about that. And one of them was a product manager. And I asked the question to this product manager, do they even need dentists in the tech sector? And the answer astounded me. She said, not only do we need them, we can't find them. There's a shortage of clinicians. So I think we're in this era now where technology is going to be rapidly accelerating its pace of development in every single area, right? And especially with AI. And we need to have dedicated clinicians, subject matter experts along for the ride, because the consequences, if we get this wrong, can be significant, right? That we're not just selling software. This stuff is a medical device. It's classified that way. And so we do need to have, and I really congratulate the founders of Overjet for this vision, is that putting and positioning this as a clinical product, right? And making sure that it's built the right way for the right reasons. And we need SMEs to be able to come along that ride. It's not possible to do without the clinical expertise.
Yeah, and that's really why I wanted to bring you in here today, because you have such an amazing story. So thank you so much for sharing that and offering up all your advice to people. I took a lot back, of course, but I know a lot of clinical team members, and we get a lot of DMs and things of like, what do I do next? Or I'm interested in this. So everything you've shared here today, I think is very tactical information for not just clinical teams, but those around the world that really want to continue this life of learning. And
I think that's exactly right, and I feel those questions as well, and certainly always happy to answer them and to share my journey. It is a unique one. It's different. It's not the typical dentist journey. I've threatened to write a book around this, but I haven't gotten started yet, and I'm hoping maybe that I can utilize some LLMs to help me get that book off the ground. But right now, I've got too many hours dedicated to Overjet and also finishing up this master's over at Purdue.
Yeah. Well, everybody, you heard it here first. It's going to be www.gordonthoughts.com, kind of like on The Office. It's just a Word doc. Oh, God. Anyways, just kidding. But thank you so much, Gordon, for spending time with us. It's been a pleasure. You guys, I really encourage you, if you're out there clinically and thinking about what are the next steps, follow along in this series, because we're going to highlight each of the clinicians' journey here at Overjet, and they're all so different. But, I think the end message here is that they have a passion for making an impact in this industry. And that doesn't just stop whenever you're there chairside. You can do that with what you're doing today. But we're really excited to continue on this journey. And thank you so much, Dr. Gordon, for spending the last few minutes with me.
Yeah, Katie, you bet. It's always wonderful to see you as well.